Greetings, Kings. Full-length handguards on ARs is very common, especially in the consumer market around the mid to low-end AR15. You see very often a relatively affordable 16-inch barrel rifle length AR15 paired with a 15-inch full-length handguard that goes all the way out to basically right where the muzzle device starts and the barrel ends. And this is something that has become very popular in the US market. It's not just lower end companies doing this, but I'm seeing it a lot in the sub $1,000 range, these full-length handguards that have been really popular for a very long time. But how come no militaries tend to be putting full-length handguards on any of their standard issue service rifles? And would the American population be better served with something like this, a handguard that goes just to the gas block and no further? Do you really need all of this rail estate here on a rifle like this that has a 16-inch barrel with a full-length handguard? Or are these full-length handguards actually just full of shit? Now, for the sake of discussion, we are going to be talking in regards to a general purpose rifle, something like a duty rifle. And I'm not talking just duty in the sense of military or law enforcement, but I'm also talking a civilian defense and a civic duty. A rifle that is not specialized in any one thing, just something that is meant to be your main weapon system for most realistic combat or fighting scenarios that you may or may not ever encounter. That is what we are talking about. We're not talking about SPRs, DMRs, hyper-specific builds, or even just more specific builds. This is your general purpose rifle that we are referencing when we're talking about the full-length handguard versus non-full length. So what are we getting on a full-length handguard? What are the pros? What are the benefits of having a full-length handguard versus something like a handguard that just goes over the gas block? Let's talk about it. So the first thing you get, and I think a lot of guys bring up, is the added sight radius. You have more sight radius if you mount iron sights on a platform like this. Therefore, the iron sights are going to be more accurate. Cool. Who realistically is running purely iron sights? Now, if you are that guy and you're going to be like, I only want iron sights and I want to take them out to 500, awesome, man. That is really cool for you, and I respect it. It's very difficult to do that. It takes a lot of skill. Awesome. That is the exception, not the standard. Most people who are going to be putting iron sights on are going to be like these, a set of Magpul MBUS originals or something similar. They're going to be your backup. They're not going to be your primary sighting system for most people. On top of that, look at the M4, the M16, the 8K pattern, the 8K pattern rifle. All of those weapon systems don't have an insane amount of sight radius. You know, even on the M16, it had the front sight block was 12 inches from into the barrel, which is further than even this 16-inch carbine with the full-length handguard. The M4 is even shorter, and on things like the 8K, I think it's even shorter than that. The bringing up of your iron sights are going to be more accurate unless they are your primary sighting system. I think most people are not going to take them out past 300 meters, and that's kind of a ridiculous point, unless, again, that is your primary sighting system. Most guys, though, they're going to be running red dots, ACOGs, LPVOs, prisms, stuff like that. So the back of the irons are more of a secondary sighting system. Next, an argument that I can see guys bringing up, and we'll talk a little bit about later in the video, is it's safer. So say you are doing crazy mag dumps into garbage or at the suppressing an enemy HOA goon squad with your rifle, the barrel gets really hot, and even the handguard gets really hot too. The idea that now your handguard fully shrouds your barrel, makes your rifle safer, you're less likely to burn yourself. Yeah, sure. I suppose you're not wrong about that. That is a factual statement that your barrel is completely shrouded. It's protected. So, you know, it protects the barrel a bit more. We'll talk a bit about that in a minute. I feel like if that was a realistic concern, we would be seeing that an effort to shroud barrels or maybe wrap them in something that is heat resistant, like a sort of muffler tape, like guys will do on motorcycles with mufflers that are really close to their legs that get really hot to prevent these burns from occurring. I mean, the M4 for the US military is meant for room temperature IQ gigachads who are not the smartest out there, and it's meant to be easily trained on and not have a ton of friction points in its use. And there's no effort to try to shroud the barrel because soldiers are burning themselves all the time on the barrel after they've, you know, dumped half their fighting load through the rifle in like a minute. I think that, sure, it's possible, right? You could, in theory, like unintentionally grab this when it's really hot. But I feel like we'd hear about a lot more cases of soldiers or people in general burning themselves in like the knees or the legs after they have shot a ton of rounds through the rifle and gotten it really hot and didn't have a full-length handguard. And guys would be like, man, I really wish I had that full-length handguard. I wouldn't have, you know, burned a hole through my pants and then let it sit there for long enough to actually burn myself. So I think that's also kind of a non-issue, something that is kind of a made-up scenario that, I'm not saying people are saying this, but I'm coming up with everything I can think of and find for the pros of the shrouded barrel, and that I just don't see it. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Aside from maybe some very niche, you know, I've just dumped 3 to 5 mags, I'm getting in a vehicle and the vehicle's really cramped, right? You have to be cognizant of this. If you're holding it up here or maybe, you know, near a upholstery on a vehicle or like seats and stuff, sure, man, you know, just if that's the case, you know, hey, more power to you. You want your fully shrouded handguard. I get it. Sure. Next we'll talk, it is better for bipods and other accessory mounting. So you do have more rail estate, of course. You have more space and so much room for activities to throw your hand wherever you want onto the rifle. When you grip it, it can be all the way out here like the cool, you know, high-speed guys, or you can have it all the way back here. You know, the world's your oyster. And you can throw your accessories and bullshit wherever you want on this rifle, and that is cool. I suppose that is a benefit, right? You have more space. We'll talk about what that comes with, but I don't think many guys are mounting bipods onto their GPRs. I don't think that's a very common occurrence. Again, we're talking about a service-style rifle, not like an SPR or a DMR, and we'll get into why this can actually be detrimental, having all of this handguard all the way out here in a little bit. But it does give you more options, right? You have more options for accessories to get your hand wherever you want. Cool, that is a benefit you are getting from the full-length handguard. The last thing we'll talk about is it protects the barrel. The barrel is now, as we had mentioned a little earlier, it's shrouded, so it won't get as beat up. It's less likely to get damaged and potentially protects it from other stuff like that. Yeah, sure. Last time I checked, barrels were not very weak. They are not, you know, prone to being damaged. I guess maybe if you had like a really thin profile barrel, that might be a concern, or one with like a worn finish, I guess. But barrels are not weak. They're, you know, hard-coated and anodized or phosphate-coated or whatever the multiple different types of coatings that are on these barrels. They are scratch and corrosion resistant already. So protecting your barrel from more of that, I mean, yes, it is a thing, but you will have to assess, is it worth it for all the cons that a full-length handguard comes with that we're about to get into in the next section. So why do full-length handguards kind of suck? And I am kind of framing this video in the light of, I don't really like full-length handguards, and we're gonna get into why. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have one, but I want to push this video out because it's important for you to assess what is important to you. Is it worth it? And the first thing, and the biggest thing we'll talk about with the full-length handguard is weight. Having a full-length handguard adds weight to your rifle, and very few times has anybody ever said, I want a heavier rifle, I want a heavier weapon system. The weight isn't an insane amount. I have some comparatives here. It's not nothing, but if I pull out my little handy sheet here in script, I do have some comparatives. So as an example, the Troy Battle Rail, it is the 15-inch model, which is the full length, weighs 1.5 pounds. The 11-inch model, which would be common, it's very close to this length here. I think this is a 12-inch quad rail. The 11-inch version is 1.25 pounds. So that's a 17% reduction, or a whole quarter pound less on the handguard. If you go all the way down to the 9-inch, if you have a carbine length gas system, it is 1.15 pounds. So that is a 24% decrease. I'll maybe throw a graph on the screen so you guys can kind of follow along, but I have a few others here. The Midwest Industries quad rail, that is a 15-inch handguard, so again, full length. It weighs 17 ounces. The 10-inch model, which would be for like carbine length again, or excuse me, like a mid-length gas system. The 10-inch version is 12.3 ounces, so that's a 27% reduction. The 9.25-inch model, which would be for like a carbine length system, is 11.4 ounces, and that's a 32% reduction. This is, what I'm getting at here is, this is not a insignificant amount of weight. When you're talking on an AR2, ounces matter. And when you look at the scale of kind of, you know, when does an AR become too heavy, this can really help you mitigate some of those weight things and not have to really look so hard in finding the lightest accessories possible. It gives you more flexibility. The other thing, and kind of more importantly, is that weight is very far forward. So we talked about the center of gravity and stuff again. Putting, you know, an extra, what is it? An extra, you put a quarter pound, 4 ounces, 3 ounces out here, makes the gun much more front heavy. And if you compound that with adding front sight here, adding a light that far forward, mounting your sling there, this really drives the gun downwards, makes it much more fatiguing to hold when you are actually utilizing the weapon system. It makes it less wieldy, and it just, I know guys personally who have gone from a full-length handguard and gone to like a 13-inch, just shortened it just a little bit, and it is night and day difference for those guys. And I feel the exact same way. This is a 16-inch barrel rifle with about a medium profile barrel. IWI claims that this is a H-bar barrel. It is not. It is like a +1 government or like a medium profile. But even compared to the Ruger 5.56, which has a medium profile barrel. Now this one is reduced to 14.7 inches with this added muzzle device, but that's why I also added the iron sights to kind of add a little more weight. I understand that this does have a slightly shorter barrel, but it does have a much heavier handguard, the quad rail, significantly heavier than an M-LOK one. And even with all of that, this heavier handguard, this feels much better to point and shoot. This is much more maneuverable for me. This is much easier to throw around compared to something with a full-length handguard where all that weight is much further forward, and it's something that's hard to describe without you actually getting out there and trying it. So I encourage you to pick up a rifle like this with a full-length handguard and to compare it to something like, you know, an M4 or something with a handguard that is not full length. There's a significant reduction in the handguard length, and actually move it around, you know, move around with it, shoot it, use it, at least swing it around in the gun store and flag everybody you possibly can. Don't do that. But get a feel for it, because it is night and day difference. The weight itself on paper can be relatively misleading, but it's the fact that that weight is so far forward, compounded with the fact that now your accessories are commonly much further forward as well. You also run into the issue of there's a higher risk for you to experience handguard bend from resting the handguard very far, or resting the handguard off of a piece of cover that's very far towards the end of the handguard. Putting your barrel, your handguard down like this, getting behind the rifle to shoot, introduces much more flex on a full-length handguard just due to the leverage, the distance between the point of contact and where the handguard actually mounts to the weapon system. On something like this rifle here that doesn't have a full-length handguard, if I mount up here, even all the way at the end of the handguard like this, there's much less leverage on the handguard, so that will help my laser aiming modules, my front sight, retain its zero and have less zero shift, than opposed to having 15 inches of leverage on the barrel nut where the handguard is attached, opposed to 12, maybe 10. Next, we'll talk a little bit about the issues of interfacing with cover. So this is a double-edged sword to a degree. I don't think that it's a side grade, right? This comes with benefits and drawbacks, having a full-length handguard when interfacing with cover. If you're attempting to use something like a very small port or a piece of cover that is very narrow, that is unconventional, where you may have to really, get behind the gun like this and lean into it, or flex the rifle to get it to your barrel to align with your sights, you are unable to push much of the barrel past this cover. So now if your cover is relatively thick, like we'll use this ammo can as an example, I can only push my barrel right up to here, maybe 1/3 into the cover. And if I'm firing and there's a very small hole here I'm shooting through, that is throwing a lot of unburned powder and dust and potential debris up into the small space and potentially back at me, which may obscure my vision and limit my abilities to use this rifle effectively with my sighting system. While opposed to something like this, where the barrel is exposed quite a bit, I can put my barrel past the cover here, like this, and give myself much more clearance to where the muzzle blast is going where I need it to go, and I am limiting how much I have to be stood off past the cover. If I'm working in tight confined spaces, I may want to push my barrel out past whatever wall or barrier I'm using to give guys behind me more space to do their thing, while with this, now I have to be all the way behind it like this, and I don't have a lot of standoff room or a lot of room to really push this out and occupy less space in my area of cover. And if you want to talk barrel flex and the reduction in zero, or in the change in your zero from a handguard or from resting the... Fuck it! What Flat Range Bones is trying to say here is that when you rest your barrel onto a piece of cover, you impart an upward force onto the barrel, and that can shift your point of impact. When you have a full-length free-floated handguard, this becomes less of an issue because obviously the handguard covers the entire barrel, and if you rest the handguard anywhere onto cover, it doesn't impart any force to the barrel. However, that is assuming that you have enough space and that the cover is conducive to fitting the full handguard onto or into the space that you are working. On top of that, in the event that you do have to rest the barrel onto a piece of cover because you cannot fit your handguard in for whatever reason it might be, now you are imparting the most amount of barrel flex possible because the force you are applying onto the barrel is onto the muzzle device, which is at the furthest point from where the barrel attaches to the receiver. If you have a non-full length handguard though, you have a lot of space to rest your barrel onto cover. Gives you more flexibility to utilize different cover types in different amounts of space. Yes, of course, you are still getting the barrel flex, but you're also able to push the barrel past your cover up to where the handguard ends, which reduces the leverage that the cover has on the barrel, reducing the overall shift in impact. That being said, as long as you have a robust barrel that is not super hot at the time you are resting it upon the cover, the shift in your point of impact is going to be pretty minimal for the distances of shooting that we are talking about. 300 to maybe 450 for point targets, and then right out to about 600 meters for an area target. And again, this isn't a precision shooting rifle. This is a rifle that we are likely taking shots out to about 300 meters, maybe 450 on reduced silhouette size targets or even full size silhouettes. So the point of impact shift is going to have a marginal effect on our accuracy. Knowing your hold, knowing how your weapon system interacts is going to be a great way to counteract that. And especially with an AR where you can do a string of fire and walk yourself in onto your target, maintaining situational awareness of the target area, and not having to break your line of sight with the target after a string of fire, unlike a heavier weapon system shooting a larger bullet where you lose the target every time you fire. The other thing we'll talk about is the light shadow. So if you mount a flashlight to a handguard here, that the head of the bulb does not go past your muzzle when you turn the flashlight on, there will be some sort of shadow cast from your barrel. It is a thing, yes, it's very minimal. Guys can, talk about, well, it might expose you, people might see you easier because it illuminates your barrel. I don't know that having the barrel illuminated is going to really increase how much I'm giving away my position when I have a white light on, but it is a point to consider and something that I thought of while I was creating this video, so I wanted to talk about it. While on the full-length handguard, it is not as much of an issue, but if you try to mount your devices further back to help bring the center of gravity closer to you, well, now you are not only silhouetting your barrel when you turn your lights or your laser aiming modules on that have flood on them. Not only do you hit the barrel, but you're also hitting part of the handguard too. So really, all this is to say, think about what you're doing, think about how you're setting up your rifle, and is it worth it to you to go with the full-length handguard, or is it worth it to give yourself a rifle that's handier and lighter to use? So why are full-length handguards so popular? Why are they so common? And at least on the civilian market, right? Because we talked, it's not really a very adopted thing within the military, both foreign and within the US military. And I think there's a few things that contribute to that. For one, it's been common for a long time, so it's started to become mass produced. And I think part of it is when a new buyer is looking for an AR-15 and they see the term full-length handguard, that implies that they're getting all the handguard they could possibly want. They're getting full-length handguard. They're not being truncated or reduced or cheapened out of handguard. I paid for the whole rifle. I want a full-length handguard. I want all my handguard. I think that's part of it. I think another part of it is the fact that a lot of these rifles are marketed to newer shooters, right? A lot of people are constantly getting into the sport and the use of the AR-15, and they don't know a lot better. They have not experienced holding other weapon systems. Again, they want to provide that full-length handguard to put that in their description, and it gives people the most options. So you now are not left wondering, oh well, you know, do I need more rail space? Do I want to mount my stuff further forward? How does it feel to really get down and grab the gun like all my CQB influencers do and shoot like that? I think that that's part of it, is giving people all the options and to experience all of it. Because they're less experienced. And a lot of people are going to be shooting at indoor ranges. They're not going to be holding their rifle up for a super long time. They won't be maneuvering with it. They're not going to really find the downfalls of this full-length handguard. And I think that's why they're really common too. And a lot of guys, you know, talk about the recoil mitigation on the AR-15, getting your hand way out there, you know, reaching out as far as you can, C-clamp that grip and control the gun and drive it down while you're shooting. And sure, this works for about 45 seconds while you're doing your build drills, but this becomes very tiring. This is very fatiguing to do this, and what you'll find, a lot of guys, their hands end up just hanging out here because it's not fatiguing. They have plenty of control over the rifle, and they're able to keep their hands further back, closer to the center of gravity for a longer time. And that's why I generally will recommend, and you'll see in the future build here, a handguard that goes out to your gas block and not any further on your rifle, because it's ergonomically better, and the added benefits of the full-length handguard just are not it. They're not worth all of that weight, having it so far forward. I think that a lot of people who I've talked to have learned this lesson too and have moved away from the full-length handguard. If you made it this far, guys, thank you for watching the video. Thank you, thank you. This was another video, again, that I really wanted to make that came from a lot of experience, a lot of restless rifle syndrome, and something that I hope brings value to you when you're putting together your weapon system or considering modifications for it. Now, if you have a full-length handguard, right, I'm not saying that you need to throw it in the dumpster and get one that's smaller, but really think about, is all of this length worth it to you? And that was really the point of this video, was to provide an outside perspective that's a little bit different from what's going on in the industry. If you like the video, I encourage you to like. If you enjoyed this video, I encourage you to drop a like. Leave a comment in the comment section about why you hate or love full-length handguards, why I am a big stupid, and give me your thoughts on a full-length handguard versus a non-full-length handguard as it starts to rain. Perfect timing. Guys, if you want to join the Autism in Discord, I have a Discord server. Link is in the description as well as in the YouTube bio. We also have a Patreon and a subscribe star for people who like bad financial decisions. As always, Kings, keep your heads held high and clean your rifles after they've been rained on at the range. Bones out. Okay, since the recording, how long was that gap? 24 minutes? And that would then, oh, look at that. My oil popped out.